There's a unique kind of ache a woman feels when the man she cares about suddenly goes silent. It's not the loud heartbreak of betrayal, not the clean cut of rejection, but the slow, suffocating confusion of being ignored. You replay every word, every text, every moment in your head. Was it something you said? Was it the way you looked at him last night? Was it your fault? That uncertainty can make you spiral, and the first instinct is to chase, to text again, to call, to explain, to try to pull him back into your world with your energy. But here's the hard truth you have to hear. When a man ignores you, the worst thing you can do is fight for his attention. The most powerful thing you can do is the opposite. Act like a woman who does not need to be noticed to know her worth. I once knew a woman named Claire who fell into this trap. She was dating a man who seemed charming at first, attentive, almost too much so. But as the months passed, he started to pull away, the text slowed down, the calls stopped, days would go by and he would give her nothing. And Claire, desperate to hold on, filled the silence with her own noise. She would send long paragraphs explaining how much she cared, she would check in constantly, she would even show up unannounced just to feel connected. But the more she chased, the less he gave, until finally he ghosted her completely. Claire came to me in tears and said, "I gave him everything. Why wasn't it enough?" And I told her the truth no one had told her before. It wasn't that you weren't enough, it was that you forgot that being ignored is not a reflection of your worth, it's a reflection of his choice. And the moment you let his silence make you smaller, you handed him power he didn't deserve. When a man ignores you, your reaction teaches him how to treat you. If you crumble, if you chase, if you beg, you send a message without even meaning to. My value depends on your attention. And that message will always lower your place in his eyes, because men, whether they admit it or not, are drawn to women who hold themselves with dignity. Not women who never feel pain, not women who never miss them, but women who can feel the sting of silence and still choose themselves first. That's what makes a man take notice again. That's what makes him realize she doesn't need me to breathe. She chooses me, but she doesn't need me. I remember another woman, Eliza. She told me, "My boyfriend used to ignore me for days. At first I cried, I chased, I lost myself in the waiting, but one day I decided I was done. Instead of blowing up his phone, I put mine down. I went to the gym, I met friends, I started a new class I'd been putting off. I didn't do it to get his attention, I did it to get mine back. And do you know what happened? Within weeks, he noticed. He asked why I wasn't chasing anymore. He tried harder. And in that moment, I realized something. I don't want a man who only values me when I stop valuing him. I want a man who never forgets I'm worth his attention." Eliza learned the truth most women eventually learn. Ignoring his silence and living your life is not just the best response. It's the only response that keeps your dignity intact. Because here's the reality. A man's silence will test you. Sometimes he ignores you because he's distracted, sometimes because he's testing your reaction, sometimes because he simply doesn't care. You may never know the reason, but what you always control is your response. And the only response that protects your heart is one built on self-respect. Acting unbothered isn't about playing games. It's about refusing to let someone else's lack of communication rob you of your peace. It's about saying, "I am a whole woman, whether you text me back or not." And the irony is, the moment you carry yourself that way, you stop losing yourself in his silence and start gaining his respect. So if you're in that moment right now, staring at your phone, waiting for a reply that isn't coming, I need you to breathe. Put it down. Do not explain yourself. Do not beg. Do not let your worth be negotiated through someone else's delay. Go live. Go walk. Go laugh. Go create. Go choose yourself. Because when you act like a woman who knows her value, his silence stops being a wound and becomes a mirror. And one of two things will happen. Either he will realize what he's losing and step up, or you will realize you deserve better and step forward. Either way, you win. And that is the first step to surviving the ache of being ignored, not by chasing him, not by proving yourself, but by showing him and yourself that a woman who respects herself will never beg to be seen. Every woman who has ever been ignored by a man knows the torment of unanswered questions. Your mind becomes a storm of possibilities. Is he busy? Is he losing interest? Is there someone else? Did I do something wrong? That silence doesn't just leave a gap in your day, it starts to eat at your self-worth. And the most dangerous thing about that spiral is that it pushes you into doing the very things that make him ignore you even more. You want to call, to text, to explain yourself, to fight for answers. But what most women don't realize is that his silence is not always about you. In fact, more often than not, it's about him, his fears, his confusion, his immaturity, or his lack of respect. And until you understand that, you will keep fighting shadows instead of protecting your heart. I once spoke to a woman named Sophia who told me her story. She said, "Every time my boyfriend pulled away, I panicked. I would send long messages, pouring my heart out, explaining how much I cared, hoping it would pull him back in. Sometimes he responded, but most of the time he stayed silent. And every silence hurt more than the last. I started to feel like I was begging just to exist in his world." That's the trap so many women fall into, confusing silence with the demand for more effort. But chasing silence only teaches him one thing, that you will tolerate being ignored. And the moment a man knows he can ignore you without consequence, he will never truly respect you. So why do men ignore women? Sometimes it's immaturity. Some men simply don't know how to communicate when they feel pressure, so they retreat instead of speaking. Sometimes it's ego. They want to feel in control, to make you chase them, to test how much you're willing to give. Sometimes it's fear. Fear of commitment, fear of emotions, fear of being vulnerable. And yes, sometimes it's disinterest. A man who doesn't value you will show it in his silence. But here's the part that women often miss. No matter the reason, his choice to ignore you reveals more about him than it does about you. And your reaction reveals more about you than it does about him. That's why this moment is so important. It's not just a test of the relationship, it's a test of your own self-respect. I remember another woman, Helena, who told me something that broke my heart. She said, "I kept thinking if I just proved my loyalty, if I just showed him I wouldn't give up, he would come back. But the more I chased, the more he pulled away. I gave him everything and still ended up with nothing." Do you see the tragedy? She thought her effort would save the relationship, but in reality, it only taught him that her love came with no boundaries. And love without boundaries isn't love, it's desperation. And desperation never earns respect. But there's something powerful you need to know. Men may not say it, but they feel it when a woman carries herself differently, when she doesn't flinch at silence, when she doesn't break down over a missed text. When she continues to live fully in her own world, something shifts inside him. Curiosity creeps in. Why isn't she chasing me? Why isn't she blowing up my phone? Why does she look happier without me? And that curiosity is what pulls him back. Not your begging, not your explanations, but your refusal to let his silence define you. The irony is this: when a man ignores you, he expects you to crumble. He expects your insecurity to take over. He expects you to fight for his attention because he has gotten used to women doing just that. But when you don't, when you act like a woman who knows she's valuable, with or without him, that's when you turn the tables. That's when his silence stops being power and starts being fear. Because nothing unsettles a man more than realizing the woman he thought would beg for him isn't begging at all, she's building herself. I think of a woman named Anna who lived this out. Her boyfriend would ignore her for days, then come back casually as if nothing happened. At first, she accepted it because she was afraid to lose him. But one day, she decided she was done being invisible. When he ignored her again, she didn't chase, she didn't text, she poured into her work, went out with friends, started painting again. Weeks later, he came back, expecting the same pattern. But this time, Anna wasn't waiting. She wasn't cold or cruel, she was simply busy being herself. And he couldn't handle it. He asked, "Why aren't you upset? Why aren't you fighting for me anymore?" And she smiled and said, "Because I realized I don't need to fight for someone who chooses silence over me." That answer shattered his ego, because for the first time, he saw what he had truly lost. Not a desperate woman, but a dignified one. So here's the heart-piercing truth. When a man ignores you, your power is not in making him talk. Your power is in showing him that his silence cannot silence you. Your power is in becoming so grounded in your own worth that his games feel small against the life you're building. That doesn't mean you stop caring. It doesn't mean you never feel the sting. It means you refuse to let that sting control your behavior. It means you choose dignity over desperation. And that choice, more than anything else, is what makes you unforgettable. Because here's what most women don't see until it's too late. Men don't respect women who beg for attention. They respect women who already know they deserve it. And when you carry yourself that way, one of two things will happen. Either he will rise to meet you, or he will drift away. But either way, you win. Because the man who truly deserves you will never make you beg to be seen. So the next time you feel that familiar ache, that storm of "why isn't he answering?" rising in your chest, pause. Ask yourself, do I want to prove my worth to a man who cannot see it? Or do I want to prove to myself that my worth never depended on his attention? That choice right there will shape everything. And when you choose yourself, you'll find that his silence doesn't break you anymore. It only reveals him. There is a shift that happens inside a woman the day she decides his silence will no longer control her. At first it feels unnatural. You want to reach out, to break the tension, to remind him you exist. Your hands itch to type. Your chest aches to call. Your mind invents 1,000 reasons why it's your responsibility to fix the distance. But when you resist that urge and choose instead to sit in your own power, something extraordinary begins to happen. The silence that once felt like punishment starts to feel like protection. You begin to see his ignoring for what it truly is, a mirror of his own immaturity, fear, or lack of value, and suddenly you realize you don't need to decode him anymore. You only need to decide for yourself. I once knew a woman named Lara who went through this awakening. She had spent years chasing after men who pulled away, always interpreting their silence as a challenge she had to overcome. But one day, exhausted and broken, she made a promise to herself. The next time a man ignores me, I will not shrink, I will not chase, I will not explain, I will rise. And she kept that promise. When the man she was seeing began to fade, she didn't beg, she didn't argue, she poured her energy into herself, her career, her friendships, her passions. And when he finally returned, expecting to find her waiting, he found something else entirely. A woman who had outgrown his silence. She told me later, for the first time I felt free, because I realized I don't need to be chosen by a man who doesn't even choose to answer me. That's what it means to reclaim your power. Because here's the truth. When you act unbothered by a man's silence, you're not playing games. You're setting standards. You're saying, my life doesn't pause because you did. And that message is louder than any text you could ever send. Men notice it, even the ones who pretend not to. They feel the shift when your energy no longer bends around their absence. They feel the weight of your boundaries when you stop rewarding their silence with attention, and that weight unsettles them. Because deep down, every man knows that a woman who refuses to be ignored is a woman who will never be taken for granted. Some men will rise to meet that strength. They will realize they were wrong, they will adjust, they will step forward with more effort. Others will drift away because they cannot match the standard you set. And though it may hurt, both outcomes are victories. Because the man who chooses you after seeing your strength is a man who respects you. And the man who leaves after realizing you won't tolerate being ignored is a man who never truly deserved you in the first place. Either way, your dignity remains untouched. I think of a story Maria once told me. Her ex would disappear for days, then return as if nothing happened. For years she tolerated it, believing love meant patience. But the day she finally stopped responding, the day she finally chose herself, he panicked. He showed up at her door, demanding to know why she wasn't chasing anymore. And Maria looked him in the eye and said, "Because silence is a choice. And I've decided I will never choose a man who chooses silence over me." She said he broke down in that moment because he realized her strength was greater than his games. That's the transformation I want every woman to feel. The moment you stop asking, "Why is he ignoring me?" and start asking, "Why am I tolerating this?" And here's what you must carry with you. Being ignored is not the end of your worth. It is the beginning of clarity. It reveals what kind of man you're dealing with. It exposes whether he respects you or not. And it shows you where you need to stand. Because when a man ignores you, the real question isn't, "What does this mean about me?" The real question is, what does this reveal about him? Once you see that difference, his silence stops wounding you and starts teaching you. So act like this. Act like a woman who knows her value cannot be measured in missed calls or delayed replies. Act like a woman whose life moves forward with or without him. Act like a woman who chooses herself first. Because when you carry yourself that way, you never lose. If he steps up, you win respect. If he walks away, you win freedom. And freedom is worth more than any text, any call, any half-hearted attention. And if you remember nothing else from this entire journey, remember this. When a man ignores you, the strongest response is not noise, it is silence filled with your own power. Because a woman who knows her worth does not chase presence, she creates it.